Let's give it a little. Give everyone 1 minute and then we'll get started. All right, all right. It is 8:31 and that means it is time for Coffee Chats with Economic Alliance Snohomish County. Good morning, everyone. My name is Gary Clark. I'm President and CEO of Economic Alliance Snohomish County, and I am pleased to come to you with an excellent topic today, which is clean tech. So today we have some amazing panelists, but before we get to that, we always have a little bit of housekeeping. So as we move to our next slide. You all know who I am. All right, we'll go back to the next slide and we'll go ahead and just dive into our panelists' introductions. But remember, housekeeping, as we always do, means that we want you to put your name in the coffee chat as to who you're with, where you're from, why you're engaged here, and also say hello to folks. And please engage us with questions as we have our panelists speak. So we actually have more than 5 panelists. So as you see here, we have 5 listed, and I'll just go down the list and then allow them to introduce themselves. But we have none other than Dr. Joseph Williams, Seattle Director at Pacific Northwest National Laboratories. We have David, oh, we lost our screen there. We have David Curtly, founder and CEO at Helion Energy. We have Dominic Weeks, head of PR and government relations at ZeroAvia. We also have Garrison Maher, who is senior manager at power supply at Snohomish County, PUD, Snohomish County. And then last, nope, not last, we have 2 more. We have Feline von Hinderberg, who is actually of public affairs lead. Yes, she's a public affairs leader at Infarm. And then last but not least, Amanda Servoda, and you can, oops, close enough. All right, I tried my best, Amanda. She is actually also with Infarm. Now, I hope we can get all of our panelists set to go. I think the next step we'd like to take is to just do a brief, let's do, if we can shift gears, and there we go. We're going to do brief introductions for each of them. We're going to start with Dr. Joseph Williams. Dr. Williams, take it away.
So I'm the Seattle Director for the Pacific Northwest National Lab. We have about 5,500 employees. We're the largest employer in Eastern Washington, but we have 230 people here in Seattle. And before I took this role, I was Governor Inslee's ICT Policy Director.
Okay, next on our list is David Curtly with Helion Energy.
Hi there, good morning. I'm David Curtly, CEO and founder of Helion Energy. Helion is a fusion energy company. We're taking the same processes that happen in the sun, and for the first time, we're doing it here on Earth to generate clean and safe electricity. We recently expanded into Everett. We're excited to be able to grow in the Everett community. We're currently 77 people and growing as fast as we can.
All right, thank you very much. Now we also have Dominic Weeks. Oh, you're muted, Dominic.
Hello. Oh, sorry. Yeah, so I'm Dominic Weeks. I am head of public relations and government relations at ZeroAvia. So ZeroAvia, we also just recently expanded into the Snohomish County area, which is very exciting, and hence why we're here today to talk. We are developing a hydrogen electric powertrain for aviation. So zero emission aviation is our target, and we're looking to do so by 2024. I head up all of our kind of external affairs and communications. So looking forward to getting to know some of you a bit better.
Thank you, Dominic. We look forward to hearing more from you. And next we have Garrison Maher.
Thanks, Gary. I'm Garrison Maher. I'm the Senior Manager of Power Supply for Snohomish PUD. And if you're wondering what a Senior Manager for Power Supply at Snohomish PUD does, we manage the portfolio of generating resources so that we can serve the 900,000 or so folks in our service territory, both Snohomish County and Camino Island, the 50,000 or so business accounts that we have, and we do the long-term planning to make sure that we are set up and prepared to serve our customers into the future. And I always have to say it that we keep our eyes on making sure that that power supply is clean, affordable, reliable, and safe. That's our commitment to our customers and our community. So thanks for having us.
Thank you, Garrison. PUD, Snohomish County. All right, and next, that's right, raise the roof. And next, we actually have Helion. Helion, take it away. And you're actually in Berlin right now.
Yes, exactly. I'm joining you from a sunny afternoon in Berlin today. Nice to meet everyone. I'm Helion. I'm Infam's Global Head of Public Affairs. And with me, I have my colleague Amanda today. So we're actually joining, we're presenting together. Amanda is based in Seattle, so she helps me with any local insights. And Infarm is actually a vertical farming company founded in Berlin 9 years ago. And yeah, we've grown into the largest network of vertical farms. And our ultimate goal is to make food production more sustainable and closer to the customer. But more on that later.
Thank you. Thank you. So let's start off a little bit here, folks. We have a large group of panelists, but we also have an amazing group of participants listening in. What I'd like to first do is ask that all of our participants do something in the chat, and that is mention what you think clean tech means. Also mention what you think energy means. Just simple, just a basic couple of words, because I think this will kind of drive conversation down the line here. Now, no emissions. You see some of those comments popping in the chat, panelists, and we can kind of engage on that. So I have a series of questions to ask, but I also want to make sure that our panelists just dive into conversation as they wish. First question that I have, and I just want to leave this open for engagement. First question that we'd like to engage on is, what are the barriers to implementing your solutions? Regulatory, material, political. So Dr. Joseph Williams, I'm going to put you on the spot first.
So we have a very large capital intensive base, which is wedded to carbon solutions. Getting the investment dollars to shift to net zero carbon solutions is very complicated. It takes time, it takes political will. So I would say it's all the things you mentioned, Gary. It's largely also plagued by the fact that it takes time to build the infrastructure. And so you just can't flip a light switch, if you will, which I guess is carbon intensive in its own, and make things happen. So it's everything you mentioned plus time.
All right, folks, I'm not going to pick on anyone. Just dive in as you wish.
So maybe I'll jump in from an Infarm perspective. So our goal is basically to decouple food production from ecosystem destruction, because the food industry overall, as some of you may know, is actually responsible for a third of man-made greenhouse gas emissions. And while carbon is definitely a major source that we need to tackle, and where we have more work to do ourselves, we think that it's equally important to not solely focus on carbon, but, for example, equally take into account the food miles, like the long supply chains that food normally go through, because that leads both to emissions, but also like to a super high share of food being lost or going to waste. And then also taking into account biodiversity, for example, because the more conventional farming we're doing, and which is needed as the global population grows, the more biodiversity is basically negatively impacted, because we're cultivating more and more land. And at the same time, also like water is like a super valuable resource that is often neglected in the conversation around like more sustainable tech. So we try to like, yeah, take into account all of those measures and find a good solution for that.
All right. Dominic, you had your hand raised. Let's get you unmuted.
Yeah, sorry, I seem to be having trouble coming off mute. Yeah, I mean, just to pick up from Philine's point, I mean, it's both a challenge for us, but it's also just the kind of key to our solution. So we do run into the fact that there is so much focus on carbon emissions, and in aviation in particular, if you look at the non-carbon emissions, they actually have at least as much an impact on global warming as carbon emissions alone. So it's really important to educate and for people to know about that, to know about nitrogen oxides, and to know that, some solutions will be great because they'll help us decarbonize, but they won't take us all the way, particularly if demand increases. So that's why hydrogen fuel cell for us is the absolute ideal solution. The only emission is water vapor, which is actually at much lower temperatures than would be in a conventional engine. So it's potentially manageable as well from a contrails perspective. So really, we've got to be pushing towards electrification and true zero emission aviation. And we think hydrogen is the way to do that. The other challenges we come across are, we've got big engineering challenges. It's not an easy thing to do, and we're pioneering that. So, we've got to find the best aerospace talent, which is part of the reason for coming to Snohomish County in the first place and the general wide area, and working with the regulator. So obviously it serves us well that everything is done as safety conscious as possible. So we have to work really closely with the regulator on a new form of propulsion for aviation, and that's beneficial, but it also obviously is intensive. So those are some of the key challenges that we face.
All right, Dominic, I see David had his hand up, and then we'll go to Garrison.
Thank you. Yeah. So at Helion, we're building fusion energy systems, fusion electricity systems for the first time. We've had our 6th generation prototype running in Redmond for a little while. And we're working on building our 7th generation system in Everett to generate electricity for the first time from fusion. And kind of building on what Dominic said is that as you're solving these kind of big technology challenges, you're doing things for the first time. And so what that means is, and this is where a lot of our time struggles are, is hiring the best people, the best aerospace, but also the best industrial and talent that knows how to build things. And so we're super excited to be in Everett now, where there's so much of that being done. And so the workforce development is a really big key for us, and how to hire as fast as possible the best people. And then the other part is supply chain issues. And you're going to probably hear that up here with all the technology companies and probably everybody, is that's a big driver when you're doing something for the first time. A lot of your components, for instance, either don't have a good supply chain in existence yet, or the supply chain is a lot of overseas supply chain, and we know all the challenges there. And so it's bringing, for our case, a lot of the fusion industry, electronic components, things that aren't mass manufactured, that have been more boutique in science in the past, but now we need to be able to mass manufacture those and build a real industry around that. So that's why with our facilities now, and we're up to 3 in Everett, we're really excited to be able to start building manufacturing lines, component lines of things that you can't really do yet in the United States, but do them and do them at scale. And so that's what's slowing us down at the moment. And so we're really excited to be able to push through that over the next couple of years and build up that big base, manufacturing base.
Okay. And Garrison?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. I might flip it a little bit and say, what are the challenges and the opportunities as we think about, maybe the next 10 years or so. And I think one of the reasons I'm so excited to be on with the smart folks developing technology here is I think it's timing. The technology on the supply side and the technology on the demand side for us at Snohomish PUD. The way that folks use our product, is changing as we think about electric vehicles. We've heard about building electrification. The way that people build is different, and we know that Snohomish County is growing. So as we think about all those things, the technology on the supply side, whether that's, generating resources, storage, or, energy efficiency, those technologies give us more options to help meet that demand in a smart way and in a clean way in the future, and making sure that those stay aligned so that we have the broadest, possible palette of options to choose from is how we're going to keep affordable, clean, reliable, and safe in the future. So making sure that, all the smart folks in our community that are developing things are talking with us, and we're partnering, and, we can learn and grow together, I think will be important for us.
All right. Well, that was a great start. I hope I didn't miss anyone who wanted to engage before we move on to the next piece. Doesn't look like it. All right. So now I think we have a few slides that can be shared. And Feline, I know you and Infarm have some slides, so I'll give you that room to do that, and we'll jump back to another question.
Thank you so much. So I hope I'm not disrupting the agenda overall, but I felt that vertical farming is maybe something that's new to many of you here. So I wanted to take the opportunity to chat a little bit about what it is that we're doing, and then obviously discuss more opportunities for clean tech later. So as I mentioned, Infarm is the world's largest vertical farming network. Founded 2013 in Berlin, and we're actually active in 11 countries now, serving almost 2,000 points of retail and restaurants or supermarkets already. And we're doing that, the pictures should give you a good idea of what it is that we're doing. So we're basically creating a controlled environment in which plants get anything they need and they grow without soil. So we use a nutrient solution that is packed with anything that the plant needs. And there's lots and lots of sensors that at all times measure the temperature, the pH value, the CO2, the growing environment basically, and also the vitamin levels of the plants, so that we can at all times reduce the resources needed for growing, such as water or energy, and at the same time maximize the nutritional values of the plants. And the upper two pictures show actually the technology that we're using also in Everett. And on the bottom, since we realized that we actually, to be more efficient, more sustainable, we need to upgrade the volumes of our produce. And that's why we have developed our farming towers, basically, that are up to 30 feet tall or even taller, depending on the facility we get. Where we can farm even more efficiently. And right now we're producing more than 70 types of leafy greens, lettuces, herbs, but eventually we really want to grow the full fruit and vegetable basket. So we're already piloting mushrooms, strawberries, tomatoes, bell peppers, to make sure that we basically offer more and more calories. In Everett, we have 30 employees. And we mainly work with QFC. So you can see an in-store module that we have implemented in their supermarket, so that the customer really sees their lettuce grow in front of their eyes, and our team is harvesting that multiple times per week and immediately offering to the consumer. And we like to really make sure that we engage in the community. We work with Marysville Food Bank and Salt of the Earth to make sure whenever we have excess production, this is donated to a good cause. And you can see that also the mayor has visited our facility various times, and we have a great relationship with them. I already touched on some of the key issues that we tried to solve with our clean tech approach. So the first one is really decoupling food production from ecosystem destruction, to put it that bluntly, because a lot of the conventional agricultural practices actually deplete the soil of water, of nutrients. There's synthetic fertilizers running into the soil and contaminating it. And all of that, and the increasing cultivation, really leads to biodiversity loss. And as I said, a high share of man-made global greenhouse gas emissions are related from pre or post-production processes of the food system. So we really want to make sure that this ends, and that we provide a solution that decouples this. And then, as with the current war going on and recent crises, we actually, all of us, see how prone global supply chains are to shocks, and that the availability and affordability of food is significantly impacted. And I think in the US, a lot of products travel for more than 1,500 miles to get from farm to fork, which not only causes lots of emissions, but actually leads to like super high shares of food being wasted before it actually gets to the customer. So we, again, want to make sure that the food is grown as close as possible to the customers to reduce both of those factors. And then last but not least, so scientists estimate that in 30 years will be more than 9 billion people on the planet, and the majority of those will live in urban areas. And at the same time, farmland, like the way farming is working right now, there just won't be enough space for it to feed this amount of people. So a professor from Wageningen University, which is the leading crop science uni in Europe, actually recently said that the planet would need to produce more food in the next 4 decades than we have harvested in the past 8,000 years. So our ambition is not to replace agriculture, but to add to the solution to make sure there's like enough food to feed the world. And yeah, what is actually our clean tech approach? Just I'll take a minute to explain that. So with this vertical farming approach that we have developed, we can farm much more space efficient, actually using 95% less land than conventional agriculture. So especially with the new farming towers that we have, we can basically harvest like a football field worth of crops on the space of like an average living room. And we have like a closed system, almost circular, that allows us to completely eliminate chemical pesticides. So there's no runoff contaminating the soil or the groundwater, and we can farm with only like 5% water compared to conventional practices, as we treat and recycle water. And we want to farm by 100% green certified energy sources by the end of this year. So where available, we would always go for renewable or low carbon options. And if those are not available in certain markets, we would buy green certificates to ensure that those are developed. And then as we always establish our growing facilities very close to the customer, so inside or outside cities or retail distribution hubs, that can like significantly reduce the supply chain to the consumer. We can completely eliminate air miles and food waste. And the, to me, most exciting part is actually that we have a huge research and development team that at all times monitors the plants and can really like find the sweet spot between what is like the minimum amount of water and light this plant needs while maximizing the nutritional values. And therefore we can like constantly make sure that our operations become more efficient and sustainable. And then maybe one important point, and then I'll stop, is what it was unique to me when I joined InFarm, it was that like sustainability is really like a key business unit in our global operations. So whenever we make a new decision, whether it's about our waste management, about new packaging, about working with a new retailer, the sustainability teams, which is like experts on environmental affairs, they would inform and analyze, is this really the most sustainable solution that we can find? So taking into account, for example, for packaging, like what is the longest shelf life that we can achieve? What is like, how can we set up our packaging in a way that we can recycle all of it? Like all of those individual decisions are really taken with sustainability in mind. And then, yeah, last point maybe, we really try to work, like we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but work with renowned global standards as we find them. So we are the first vertical farming company to commit to the science-based targets initiatives. I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with that. It's basically a set of companies that commit to adjusting their carbon goals to the Paris Climate Agreement. So we're currently developing those, and we're also applying to be a B Corp company. That means a company that is committed to like a very high standards when it comes to their governments, but also the well-being of their workers, the communities they're active in. So really making sure that profit and purpose is very much in line with each other, and profit is not prioritized over purpose and the well-being of our communities. Yeah, that's it. That's everything I wanted to share. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Oh, excellent, excellent. Feline, thank you for providing us with that info and overview. I think most of us probably have additional questions. So if you have more questions for Feline and Infarm, throw them in the chat right here. We're going to do one more of these just to give you some more input. And I believe, Dominic, do you have access to share screen? Not yet, not yet. All right, we'll make sure you do. Let's try it one more time, see if you get that. There we go.
Great, perfect. Yeah, that's fascinating on Infarm. Really, really interesting. So I might add my own questions in a second, but just to quickly talk through ZeroAvia and what we're trying to do. So this is our vision. It's renewably powered hydrogen electric aviation, and we've focused in on renewable just because you know, for us, we're going to take zero emission aviation forward. It helps if we can generate the fuel in a zero emission fashion as well. So that's the kind of ideal vision. But if David and his team can crack fusion, then that will certainly help us in terms of generating clean electricity. We need clean electricity so that we can then split water in an electrolyzer into hydrogen and oxygen. We vent off the oxygen. We've then used the hydrogen as a gas for our first kind of 10 to 20 seat aircraft to fuel the aircraft. And then that is used in a fuel cell system, fuel cell stacks to generate electricity, which powers the electric motors, which power the propellers, and then obviously give thrust to the aircraft. So we've landed on this solution purely because we think it gives longer range than battery is going to be able to, and also it will give commercial level payloads. You'll be able to carry passengers, you'll be able to carry cargo. We think it's going to offer lower costs. We're all seeing the energy costs, security issues that we face, and we think green hydrogen production offers the opportunity for airlines and airports to have a much more stable source of fuel and at lower cost as well. And then crucially, as I kind of mentioned in the intro section, we're looking at zero emission flight as well. So this is a somewhat complicated chart of various different colors, but it just shows that we've looked at all of the different options, and that's why we've landed on what we call hydrogen electric. So that's the fuel cell system. Batteries essentially are fantastic. We want electrification, but weight is obviously an enormous issue in flight. So even the kind of projections around battery technology development at the cell level make it difficult to see the progression required to make flight realistic. You know, hybrid electric just don't really do the job in terms of reducing the emissions. And then sustainable aviation fuels are crucial, but feedstock in terms of biofuels is limited. And then you also have high costs of creating synthetic fuels. And also it's worth noting that with synthetic fuels, hydrogen is part of the mix there. So it's a less energy efficient process than creating hydrogen itself. Fundamentally, you know, it's about reducing all of these emissions levels, and that's why we've landed on hydrogen electric. There are some water vapor issues to solve, and then there are some engineering challenges around weight as well that we're working through. And we also will look to move to liquid hydrogen for larger aircraft size, which creates a whole range of other engineering challenges. But that's the kind of overarching reason why we landed where we have. And then just to give a sense of what we're trying to achieve. So we're looking to try and get our first commercial offering into the market by 2024. That would be a 600 kilowatt system capable of powering an aircraft of 10 to 20 seats up to 300 to 500 nautical mile range. So just to put that in context, on the outside margins of that 500 nautical mile range would be Seattle to San Francisco, just on the outside of it. So you don't need to progress the technology much before you can be taking zero emission passenger flights to useful business destinations. And then we're also looking at and we're already working on this system, a 2 megawatt system, which would power up to 40 to 90 seat aircraft as far as 1,000 nautical miles. And really, we don't see any barriers to the technology. It's possible to scale this up to larger airframes. You might start to need clean sheet design, so new airframe design, because hydrogen is great, it's energy dense, but it is a bulky fuel. So the volume requirements mean that maybe in the future, new aircraft design will be needed. We're looking to retrofit aircraft in the initial instances. And so I was going to play a video, but I'll skip this. It's on our YouTube channel. Do check it out. It's just some of the most recent ground testing, actually from back in December. But we're on the cusp in the UK of flying out 19-seat testbed aircraft. And that is, hugely important. It's a big milestone, but we'll be building up to flight testing in the US as well this summer from a Hollister location. And the location at Payne Field is already really active in terms of examining our electric propulsion systems and looking at the next level aircraft, that ZA2000 as well, as part of a partnership with Alaska Airlines. So we'll skip on from that. And then I just was going to close on why we landed here, which I don't think will be a surprise to anyone on this call, so I'll keep this very brief. But essentially, the big attraction for us was locating close to a really important partner for us in Alaska Airlines, but also just the level of talented aerospace engineers that are in the area, and clean energy professionals as well. It's not, as you go to any aviation conference, even when you're not talking about something as novel as hydrogen, you are going to find that people struggle massively with workforce. So being in the right geographies is just hugely important for us. And we've got massively exciting things planned in Everett over the coming years as well. So we're really excited to join you all and look forward to meeting in person at some point as well.
All right. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit more insight into ZeroAvia's work here. And I know we have quite a few questions in the chat for N-Farm. So Helion, I don't know if you wanted to address a few of those, and then we'll jump back to see if we have any comments from Dominic, additionally from the audience if they have questions. So Helion, take it away.
Sure. So I tried to answer already to answer some of those in the chat. So I think the one I haven't answered yet is whether the embodied carbon from the infrastructure of vertical farming spaces versus common organic farming. So this is actually difficult to really meaningfully compare, because it depends on the farming method, the region, the type of crop, the supply chain. But definitely, yes, that we grow with the LED light and have to set up our growing facilities is definitely an additional carbon source. But this is also not static, because a major source of emissions right now is the LED lighting. And that's actually such a young industry that it hasn't reached its efficiency peak yet. So every year, basically, that technology becomes more energy efficient, and we're sort of updating our technology accordingly. And also adapting the plant recipes to ensure for to minimize our energy requirements. So yeah, I don't have a meaningful comparison just yet, but I think I want to point to again that we think that carbon shouldn't be the only single point of focus, but equally water, biodiversity, and supply chain related emissions and food waste. Yeah, so that's one question. Then we are in 12 QFCs. That was the question from Don that I answered. And then there was one more. Do you want me to take another question, or should I?
Oh, we'll jump to Dominic, and then we'll go back to the panelists, and then we'll see how much time we have left at the end after that. But
yeah, so the safety question, presumably, which is often referred to as the Hindenburg question. So we're over 100 years post that, but it still plays very much and looms large on the public imagination. I mean, there are several reasons why everything has to be certified, right? So it has to go through all the checks and make sure that the FAA and various regulators in different geographies are comfortable with it. And that includes looking at how the fuel will be managed in an airport environment. So there's a lot of rigorous work to be done, but there's a lot of reasons also to be positive about the safety potential for hydrogen. It's got a lower ignition point than jet kerosene. It disperses very quickly and goes upwards, doesn't pool around an aircraft. So, you know, when you look at the tanks' maturity and how sturdy and safe the tanks are in the hydrogen field, they've been tested often with, you know, with guns fired at them. So there's lots of reasons to be positive and not negative about the safety case for hydrogen in aviation. It actually can be a safer fuel.
All right, folks, this is excellent. We've got a lot of engagement in the chat. We've had 2 excellent overview presentations, and we have some other panelists here who want to chime in. So David, Dr. Williams, Garrison, I have another question, and also the rest of you are welcome to chime in. But how do scientists engaged in clean tech see competition or discoveries being shared in the race to reach zero emissions? So David, looks like you unmuted already. Dr. Williams, who wants to stab it?
Yeah, I can jump in and then first. So this is as fusion, which has fundamentally been more of a scientific exercise for a long time. And I am a scientist as well, previous to founding the company, maybe still, anyway. It's a critical thing to all new technology that we do. And to Dominic and to Feline, and then all the panelists, I'm sure the scientific component is really critical. And a lot of the work that we do is based off of fundamental work funded by the federal government to do basic science. But what we're also seeing is an excitement among young scientists to be involved in the private enterprise as well, that they see the speed that we can move, that we can deploy a new technology that takes the basic science, has proven a lot of the engineering, and then going forward, and to get it out to actually address big changes. I think we're all seeing the challenges of climate change, obviously, but also now really the energy security picture and the ability to provide energy locally, as well as local supply chain development and all those things we touched on earlier. And so for young scientists, we're seeing the excitement of coming out of school, taking the basic science that they have proven and they've learned, and applying that to get it out into a product in market that can address these worldwide challenges. And so that's something that I particularly like to see, is the excitement level that we see coming out when young scientists come out of school and engaging the scientific community broader. And we see this in fusion. Certainly, there's now over 40 companies doing fusion, which is a radical change from even a few years ago where it was like the 3 of us, as well as obviously in aerospace and space itself.
Awesome. I'm going to let Dr. Williams jump in. Go ahead.
All right. So as a national laboratory, we are fundamentally all about the science, and everybody who's spoken, we actually do science for all of those fields. We actually do a lot of work in Snohomish County, by the way. SNOPUD is one of our favorite partners, as Garrison knows. I'll just say the United States government makes big investments in things like, how do you build a battery infrastructure that solves the duckbill problem for alternative ways of generating electricity? So we're building a new building, the Grid Storage Launch Pad, where we're going to try to figure out, can you do gigawatt storage of electricity that's generated during the day or when it's windy and isn't otherwise available? We do all kinds of things around grid security. So with the war in Ukraine, everybody's worried about making sure the infrastructure is safe. We do a lot of work in that. We actually, at one time, we're talking to data centers, Feline, about the vertical farming in data centers. There's some pilot work being done up north with our Canadian neighbors, but that's super interesting as well. And so to kind of emphasize what David was saying, we're all about the science. But the federal government makes investments in early stage science that isn't commercial yet. So it's not commercial to build a gigawatt storage facility yet. We'll do the science, we'll figure out how to do that. And then the Department of Energy or our owner, which is Battelle, will try to figure out how to license that and make that available. And it's super interesting. So from our view, Gary, there is no competition. It's all about trying to share the technology out so that the entrepreneurial ecosystem could take advantage of that. And we partner with NREL, the National Renewable can't remember what EL stands for, Energy Lab out in Boulder and across the DOE complex to make sure these solutions are widely available in terms of all kinds of applications. And we would love to see startups leveraging our science in the Snohomish area. In fact, we've talked to your county executive about that, and we think there's a lot of upside in Sunoco.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I love that, Dr. Williams. And if I had more time, I'd push back on the no competition comment. You know, I get it. I get it from your vantage point, but I'd love to hear more. I see David's got his hand up again. Just jump in, and Dominic, you can go after if you'd like.
Yeah, one super quick comment, just to build on that, and yeah, the role of the federal government and basic science and bringing together the entrepreneurial aspects of it, and the science that everything we do is really fundamentally based off of is so critically important. Later this week, actually, the White House Office of Science and Technology is having a fusion summit focused on the bold decadal vision for getting fusion on the grid in the next decade, bringing together the Department of Energy, bringing together Helion will be one of the panelists at the White House, talking specifically about how do we take that science, take modern engineering, and get that out actually on the grid as fast as possible.
All right, I see Dominic, you were queued up, and then Garrison has his hand up. Or were you queued
yeah,
up?
Gary, I mean, I don't know if I was queued up really. I mean, I just would add that in terms of the competition aspects, obviously we have competitors, but this is a developing ecosystem, and we're often on panels and in standards organizations with all of our various different competitors. And if we can move the body of knowledge forward, there's a big market here for clean aviation. So there's a good opportunity for everybody, and I think there's a healthy amount of general combined thinking as well. So,
okay, Garrison.
Yeah, thanks, Gary. Not a scientist, but an economist, but maybe wanting just to cheerlead a little bit for the scientists and share, from our perspective, the benefits there. And definitely we've seen renewable energy prices really fall lately as a result of innovation in that field from an energy perspective. That's something that benefits PUD customers here as we participate in that wholesale market. We've definitely partnered with Dr. Williams's group at the Arlington Microgrid, which is helping us better understand future technology that'll help us maintain that grid reliability that our customers want and deserve. And as we look towards the future, we have a really interesting opportunity with some of the clean energy legislation in our state that's going to incentivize more renewable energy into the grid. And if we can develop the smart technologies to store or redispatch that energy, that's going to help the PUD keep costs low and keep the carbon emission profile of our product and the input into great technologies like Dominic's and Philine's, really low, and help them meet their sustainability goals too. So we're excited about the innovation that's coming, and I think our customers benefit from that directly.
Thank you, Garrison. I see we have two gurus of economic development asking questions of Helion, and I see David has answered those, so I won't address those specifically. I have two final questions on my list, and then if those of you who are still in the audience, which is close to 100 folks, thank you. Please start to ask your questions of our panelists now, and we'll get to those. So my esteemed colleagues and panelists, we have two questions. One is a very simple question, and that is, how does Washington compare to the work being done in other states and other countries? So we can do the raise our hand bit. Philine, I might put you on the spot and go from there. So here we go.
So in the United States, Seattle was actually the first location that we launched, and only since then we have signed an additional facility in Kyle. So I can't really compare that to other United States locations, but maybe Amanda, maybe you can give an overview on like the business climate that we perceive locally.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Washington was the first state that we chose in the US for two reasons. the lifestyle and value systems of the folks that live here and what they want in the products that they consume and they eat, how our products are grown, how we're sourcing them, and just that being a really responsible decision. And then also we're an incredible tech area, they're a tech mega hub. So it just made sense for those two reasons, that an incredible workforce and amazing talent was accessible, and how our consumers shop.
Thank you. We've got Dr. Williams and then David.
So, not to trumpet too much my former boss, but Governor Inslee is absolutely committed to clean energy. And if you look at all of his policies, everything he does tries to promote our progress as a state toward the cleanest environment, the cleanest energy possible. There's a lot of constitutional reasons why we can't invest directly as a state in things. So we can't do what Texas does, which is throw money at everything. But he gets very clever in the way he actually funds things like what happened at Payne Field in terms of investment there. On top of that, if you look at our university ecosystem, both the University of Washington and Washington State are heavily committed to the science in this field, and I think at a level that makes us world class. And then the other thing I'll say, Gary, is it's not just the west side of the state, where the blue side of the state that's committed to this. It's also the red side of the state, the eastern part of the state. The farming communities out there, the industrial communities out there are really committed to a clean tech environment. And so I think Washington is just unique. We're not Idaho or Utah, or not to pick on any other states, but we're not.
Dr. Williams, are you suggesting that we might be purple and not red and blue? I'm kind of digging that conversation. We'll have that at another time.
Different time.
Over coffee. All right. So David, were you queued up as well? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. So yeah, I can talk to the state, and then I can also talk specifically about Snohomish County and Everett too, and why that is so critical. Obviously, I want to echo the points. The governor, as well as the state in general, is obviously critically interested in clean energy technologies and deploying them as fast as we can. And I want to give a shout out to the Snohomish PUD too, as specifically supporting renewable technologies and several parallel programs to help develop and accelerate renewable programs that we look to take advantage of as well and participate in. And then I want to echo Dr. Williams. In about half of our scientists are from the University of Washington, and a quarter of our engineers are from the University of Washington, or other Washington universities even. And so being able to actually have such a strong academic base, and building on that with all of the industrial base of the workforce for all the aerospace industries, the manufacturing, the machining, machine shops. This is one of the few places in the world where you can bring absolutely the highest technology of fiber optics, computing, and all the other key electronics technologies we need, and a wonderful industrial base of machining large aluminum parts and being able to assemble large scale structures, mega projects that have lots of wiring and other things that we do at Helion. And so that's what makes this one Everett a perfect place for us, but also the whole community in general committed to not only just building really awesome things, but focusing on clean technologies and clean climate technologies as well.
All right, and I have one final question, but go ahead, Dominic.
I was going to add that, I talked a lot about the skills, and we've already started to see in our need for software developers, for aerospace engineers, for electrical engineers. There's a vast array of talent. So I would also add, to Joseph, Dr. Williams's point, we've had great support from the state and from the governor's office, and the intent is definitely apparent and we look across, all of the areas we're involved, both in the UK, EU, and then California, and also in Washington State. So that's fantastic to see. But we're already starting to see the kind of fill our roles and see the business grow thanks to the available skills base.
All right. I know we have a few questions in the chat, so I want to get to those as quickly as possible. So I'm just going to ask that a few of you answer this last question, and then each of you will get a chance to have a concluding statement in a few moments after we get through a few audience participant questions. So this final question from me is tied to assuming that you have success, that all of you are successful, and that includes PUD. What are the next levels of clean tech? So we'll have just a few folks. Whoever jumps in first gets to dive into this one. So assuming your success, what are the next levels of clean tech in your mind? Tough question.
So Gary, I'll kick off. One of my own personal pet projects is once we get all this infrastructure in place, it ages and eventually has to be sacked in some fashion. And the disposal and recycling of batteries, windmill blades, electric aircraft, and all of that, I think is going to be the next challenge. So we'll solve the short-term problem, which is how do we get to net zero? But the longer-term problem is we're going to have a disposal problem, and how do we deal with that?
All right, I think Dr. Williams has nipped that question in the bud for now, because I see some other questions being asked, and I want to make sure our participants feel like they were heard. There is a question, I'm just going to go from the bottom up right now. How important is access to public transportation to your business and employees? And that's from Tom Higson, Everett Transit. Yeah, go ahead.
Could quickly answer that, but and just say that for many of our employees, what they're mostly, what they're really excited about working for the company is they want to be doing something that is in the clean energy transition, and that's we talked. Helion mentioned the kind of lifestyle, and I think Amanda as well. That's one of the reasons for them selecting the region as one of the first in the US. Yeah, and so people who come to work for us really want to make green choices. So having safe cycle spaces, having access to good clean public transport, hugely important for them in their own mental well-being and lifestyle choices.
All right, David.
And I actually just had a conversation last night with one of our new hires who moved up here from Texas to build clean energy solutions, just about coming here and the access of the light rail and the access of public transportation, both in Everett as well as in Seattle, has been a huge driver for them in being able to we have new people. A lot of our hiring, maybe about half of our employees are coming in from other states, and find this like whole different ecosystem here of being able to live in a nice place, commute to downtown, or commute all over, be it with buses and with light rail, and how refreshing that has been. And weirdly enough, it lets them sort of open up this maybe I hired too many engineers, so it's all about optimizing where you're living and where you're playing and where you're working, and our public transportation system opens that up for them.
All right. So it looks like we're running out of time here, so I want to make sure, because we have this amazing group of panelists, that each of you get a chance to say some parting shots and thoughts, and maybe even some energy to rejuvenate the folks in this audience and also take them on their way for this Tuesday. So Helion and Amanda, you get to go first, give some parting thoughts, final comments, and then we'll go from Helion and Amanda to Garrison at PUD, Dr. Williams, then Dominic, and then David gets to wrap it up. All right, let's go.
Thank you. So thanks for having us today. I really, really enjoyed this format. So I guess some parting words would maybe be that I guess a lot of folks may think that like nature and tech is exclusive, but we really, really think that tech can actually help bring out the best in nature, so that they make for a beautiful match. So we would love, for more people to sort of adopt this view and see those advantages, I guess. Amanda, do you want to add anything to that?
No, I just if, go into QFCs and check some out, some in-farm. We're really looking to grow. We're just about a year old here in Seattle, well, in Everett. And so we're really trying to grow who we're reaching with a large focus on food deserts. So we can also just address accessibility to clean herbs. So.
All right, please put your business or organization link in the chat. Yes. All right, who's next?
I'll go next. And just would quickly on this, there was another question on safety, which I hope I had answered that. It's the opposite of what was stated in the question. So I think I was saying, hydrogen fuel can definitely be as safe, if not safer than Jet A1. But just on the summary, I mean, I think this is a fabulous event put together. So thanks, Gary and team for doing that. And I would just say, like, what we've heard today is that in the future, we'll be able to eat much more environmentally consciously. We'll be able to have clean power, and we should be able to travel more easily with clean aviation as well. So I think it's an incredibly optimistic picture if you're someone who does care deeply about the planet. So yeah, just a really good group, and found it very enjoyable.
Thank you, Dominic. Who's next? Garrison or Dr. Williams?
I'll go next. I think one of the themes that we've talked about is workforce. And one of the things I would leave with everybody here, we're not getting enough kids interested in science. There's just a paucity of students entering into our STEM fields, and whatever parents can do to encourage their kids in the STEM field. I'm proud to say I have a chemical engineer daughter, but I have a business school son. I couldn't talk him into an engineering career, but we need to do more of that. The truth is, we just don't have the workforce, and so we need more kids coming into the process. We have some great universities. We just need to get them there.
Hey, Dr. Williams, you seem like an amazing guy because you just laid the groundwork. You just thrown an alley-oop to Angie Sievers from STEM, Snohomish STEM. So Angie, if you would just throw in the link to STEM in the chat, any of our businesses across the spectrum, please take heed to what Dr. Joseph Williams just said. We have a new workforce that we have to develop, manifest, and build, and STEM can do that for you. Garrison, take it away.
Hey, thanks. What I would want to share is, there was a great question in the chat of, are we planning for EV growth? What does that look like? What I would hope people walk away with is that your Snohomish PUD today has a clean portfolio of resources. We don't have any fossil fuel generating resources in our portfolio. We have very low costs. We're very reliable. And we're planning to do that now into the future. Those things are not mutually exclusive. We can chart that path forward. Part of the way that we do that is by leaning into technology, leaning into these new challenges and opportunities. And there are challenges that we can meet. So I would just want folks to know that, your PUD is committed to being clean, affordable, reliable, and safe. And, the folks on this panel are going to be some of the innovators that help us get there into the future, and we love it. So thanks.
All right, and last but not least, David.
Great, thank you, Gary. So I want to close and just reiterate a lot of what all of us have said here, and I can actually touch to that EV question specifically, that you're seeing a revolution in clean transportation, in aviation, in clean, obviously electric vehicles, and clean farming, and all across the board, and driven by transitions from fossil fuels to electric fuels. And I want you to know that there are not, in addition to some of those technologies, there are clean generating technologies too that augment wind and solar and biofuels and like fusion energy from Helion, and those are coming too. And so I'm excited to be able to help participate in enabling a lot of those other clean electric transitions that are happening. And I'm really excited by now being able to move my business into Snohomish and into specifically Everett, that it's just an absolute wonderful base with a bunch of wonderful people, including this coffee chat specifically. So I want to just wrap up and say thank you, Gary. I am really excited about what the future holds for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you all, and I hope I didn't miss anyone. I just want to make sure. It looks like the coast is clear there. folks, this has been an amazing conversation. We merged a ton of ideas, concepts, and thoughts. And Dominic, it looks like you got your answer as well, I hope. I just want to make sure you jumped in. Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I did.
It did. Okay. Just wanted to make sure. I feel as though I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Snohomish County is known as a place for innovation and a frontier spirit. And we realize that companies such as yours and others are coming to Snohomish County, Everett, and other places because they realize that this is an opportunity to provide a positive impact environmentally and make a change. So I really thank you all for being here today. Now we have some other items to share, and please panelists, don't go away because you know we do our final coffee chat pledge. Legislative wrap-up is coming up March 22nd at 8:30 a.m. And that'll be led by our very own Misha Lujan. So please join us March 22nd at 8:30 a.m. And additionally, it's the state of Everett. That's right. We have our very own mayor who is going to come up, Cassie Franklin, and going to give a very, very amazing presentation to all of you. Remember, the state of Everett, March 31st, 9:30 a.m. to 11 a.m. And that is presented by the Boeing Company. And it is an in-person event at Edward D. Hanson Conference Center. And last but not least, as we break into gallery mode, if we can, Annette, we have to send off our amazing panelists the appropriate way. And so if we could break into gallery mode, we will, everyone grab their coffee cups or water or what have you. Let's see if we can get, I'm gonna go take myself to gallery mode. I'd ask all of you to try to do the same. I'll unpin myself here. And everybody's got their coffees queued up, I hope. All right, looks like it. Okay, so folks, we are in Snohomish County in Washington State. And what we do here is we lift up our drinks, coffee cups mostly, and we say salute to clean tech, energy, and a quality of life for all humanity, right? All right, rate your cups. Have an amazing Tuesday. Thanks for joining us. Economic Alliance, Snohomish County.